Hello everyone, welcome to Techies on Wheel. Today we will look upon RPA Process Design Document. We call it PDD. This would be a complete guide on RPA Process Design Document. We will look upon what is RPA Process Design Document and how to make it. So let's get started. Let's first understand what is PDD. So whenever we go ahead with a process to be further developed, before that, we have to, or a developer need to know what all are the steps and what is the process he is going to automate. Also, the development has to be for all the steps which are performed by the SME. So he cannot keep it all in his mind. So that is where the process design document comes in picture. When we are in analysis phase, a business analyst assess the process and find that it is feasible. Post that, they go ahead and with the help of subject matter expert or the operations person who is performing that process, he communicate and document each and entire step being performed by that SME to perform that process. That involves these steps on the keystroke level. So say example, there are 3 applications involved, 2 web application and 1 desktop application, maybe Excel. So from the step of launching that web application, logging in by entering username and password on that particular web application, navigating to the particular screen, each and every step, that is where I'm talking about the keystroke level steps being documented in the process design document. So the crux is that whatever an SME is or an agent is performing on the system to perform that process end to end has to be documented in a document, which we call it process design document. Hence, business analyst written here is that with help of subject matter expert or the agent, we call it, prepares the detailed PDD for the selected process. Now let's have a look on what does the PDD includes. What all information it captures is the first one we talk about is process trigger. So triggers are something which initiate your automation or your bot or your process. So for example, maybe for a team to initiate a process, it requires to wait for a certain time. Say a report has to be downloaded from a web portal at 4 o'clock. So the criteria here is that at 4 o'clock, before 4 o'clock in evening, report is not available on the portal. So it will not make sense to go and wait on the portal until 4 o'clock to for that report to download it. So in that scenario, the trigger could be your time, and there we call it schedule. So either we can schedule it for a certain time, say 4 o'clock, bot will run and will download that process. As of now, manually, agent does it at 4 o'clock. So that is one of the information. Other could be that to perform a step, they are dependent on some files or folders or certain activity or an email to arrive. So those can be triggers for your process. So say if there are 2 teams involved in a process, team A has to send a file or a confirmation that one process is complete. Now team B can go ahead and perform the business steps. Now if we are considering process for automating for team B, the trigger would be that email confirmation which the SME or agent would be waiting from process A SME. So the moment that email arrives, bot needs to get triggered. As of now, manually, that is the trigger. So we need to capture any such process triggers if involved in the process. Second is the main process flow and alternate flow. So as the name suggests, flow, how each and every step has to be performed. Is there any decision making involved? So entirely from say first application has to be logged in, and then they have to go on the desktop application, and then again maybe on some other application. That entire flow has to be drawn and documented. Then we have the recordings. If a business analyst had any previous communication or walkthrough with the subject matter expert of the process, that should be ideally recorded if permissible. And that recording should be also a link of that recording might be placed over that PDD, just in case a developer at certain point wants to refer it, or a certain step needs to be referred, they can go ahead and directly look for the recording. And if in case still not clear, they can reach out to business analyst or the SME in that scenario. It saves time of both of entire team, I would say, rather, considering for the same query, you need not go back and forth to business analyst again and again. This is where recording comes helpful. Next one is the list of exceptions and errors. So there are certain exceptions and errors which are already known by the SME while performing the process. This might be an application related exceptions, or it might be that, say, at 4 o'clock a report has to be there, but there are certain times when it get delayed until 4:30 or something likewise. Or even if in previous scenario, SME has faced certain kind of exceptional scenario, they could uh, they could narrate it, and business analyst should mention it for the better handling of the exceptions for the bot in the process design document. There could also be scenario that while downloading the report, there could be certain errors which comes up, and it is again a system or application related error which might get encountered, and in that scenario you need to retry after 5 minutes. So if any such scenarios has already been encountered by by the SME or the business analyst at time of discovery, that should also be noted down in the PDD. Next are the screenshots of the process. So whenever I say that when we need to document each and every steps on a keystroke level, a screenshot is always of help. Screenshots and highlighting what all functions, keys, buttons, or fields you need to work on, and then mentioning it step by step is always of help. Next are the pre-identified business rules, and the special requirements or considerations which needs to be done should always be documented in PDD, as these all informations helps the developer to develop, or a solution architect to design the document solution, the bot, in a better sense. Like I told, these are very critical one, as PDD are considered as the base for entire automation. Once this PDD is approved, then only a developer go ahead and start to build the entire process. So it is very important that each and every small thing should be called out and mentioned in the PDD to avoid any such scenarios or misconceptions or confusions in future. So it becomes utmost important that PDD is briefly and is wisely documented and is approved by the client before we proceed with the solutioning or development of the process. So now let's see, how does the actual PDD look like and what all information does it capture in detail. So like I told, PDD, which is process design document, is generally a Word document which is prepared by the business analyst or the SME in case, where the first page, which is your landing page, is the name of the process, the customer. Generally, we call it process design definition document or design document, whatever you can name it. The name of the customer from whom you are designing this process, and the name of the process which you are developing or you want to develop in future, get developed in future. Then you have this version here. This version talk about the modifications. It's generally we initiate with version 1.0, and in future any changes or amendment done on this document, this versioning can be revised accordingly just for the reference purpose. Then in the page 2, we have this table of content which describes on brief that what all are the contents of this entire PDD. First, we have the document control, which talks about the author, versionings of the PDD, and document review and sign-off details. Then we have business context. Then we have scope and requirements overview, business process flow, detailed process definition, exception handling, logging, dependencies, special requirement and consideration, and then the appendix. Now let's look upon it one by one. So like I told, first one is the document control, which talks about authors. So we have a table of index, or we can have a table of index which talk about the date and the author name, which is business analyst in our scenario. Their role is business analyst. Who's it? You can get from this reference here. If anyone in future comes and wants to refer who was the business analyst or who is the author of this document, can generally come here in this section and can get it from here. Then we have version control. Version control talks about the number of revisions we have done in this PDD and what are the dates onto which these revisions has been done. So if in case this comes in importance that a version 1.0 has been shared by business analyst for a review with the client and client comes up with certain modifications, in that scenario, the versioning would change from version 1.0 to 1.1 or accordingly whatever versionings you guys follow in your organization, and the date of that modification, who has revised it, and the reason for change. So the reason for change in our scenario would be changes suggested or observed by the SME or the client. So any such revisions observed or done by in the PDD should be mentioned here in the version history. Then we have this document review and sign off. So once this document is reviewed, we have to document it that who is the approver, what is the date which at which the PDD has been reviewed, approver name, the role, and the signature, which is again your name could be there or electronic signature, whatever you guys follow, could be mentioned here just for the revision, just for the sake of reference, so that the final approval, if any, should be also documented here as a sign off or as a sign off or a proof of PDD approval. This is a document control. Then we have this business context. Here, you talk about, it's a generally a paragraph or two where you talk about what is the context of this business process you are doing or you are taking in consideration. What does it actually do on a functional level and what does it mean like? So your definitions or purpose can come here. Then we have scope and requirement overview. So here you define that what is the scope and what are the requirements at very high level. And it's again a theoretical thing. So say, for example, there are two applications or three applications involved, and the scope lies from reading that email as an as a go ahead for the part two of the process, but you don't find it, or the SME or SME informs you that there are certain human validation which needs to be done. So in your scenario, you might be preparing a certain input template which has to be prepared by SME rather than going directly onto the email box and reading it from there. So that would be considered out of scope for bot. So you can mention here that what are the scopes in a scope for your bot process that will not involve your email reading part. That is where it comes important that you jot it down clearly or on very high level that what all steps or the part of the process which will be considered in scope, and the high level of the requirement in a paragraph way or a notes or a indexed way, you can mention it here. Then we have process flow, which is again a very high level flow diagram you need to prepare on what all steps and what all applications are involved and how does the flow actually works like. We'll have a different detailed video onto how to make a process flow diagram and how does it look like. But for now, let's take it in a theoretical way. Then we have detailed process definition. This is where I was talking about the keystroke level in documentation of the process and the screenshots. So here you need to mention what is the step number you're talking about. Description, like for say example, login to the application. And then here you need to paste the screenshot of the login page, and then you need to mention that enter username, enter password, and click on submit or click on login. So there are three steps here, and the screenshot highlighting what is the username field, then where is the password field, and what is the login button you are talking about. This is where it will become really helpful for anyone who is referring to this PDD to identify that actually which screen I'm talking about, what I need to perform it on a keystroke level, like for entering username. And then on the other keystroke level, I'm talking that you have to enter password. And then the third is to click on that button, login button. And each and every such steps which is followed in your process has to be documented in either of these format. Format can differ process to process, organization to organization, but it's crucial that you mention these informations. It can be tabular, it cannot be tabular format. It will completely depend on how you are preparing the PDD and what format you would like to, but the information is something which has to be captured on detail level here. Then we have exception handling. So we do know that not all exceptions can be identified and captured at an initial level, but whatever business exceptions or maybe system exceptions which are already known to the SMEs or business analyst should always be called out clearly, that what is the exception or or error we can encounter in future while performing this process, and a detail of it, so that if in case this error comes in future or exceptions arises, what is expected out of bot to do. Say, for example, a report is not available at 4 o'clock uh, when the bot went to download it. What should it do? Should it wait for 5 minutes? And if still say after 5 minutes that that report is not available, what do we need to do? So say SME asks you that if in case if the report is not available, say until 4:15, you need to trigger an email notifying our team that the report is not available. So you need to capture it and mention it so that the developer or solution designer, this tech arc, should design the bot in the similar fashion so that all these exceptions and known errors are well captured and handled by bot. So it is very important uh, that we mention each and everything in detail, which is already known to us, being a BA or SME. Then we have this logging one. Section which talks about your logs, that what all logs are required in your process. One could be the audit log, and this is the generic practice which anyone prefers. This is just for the sake that if in case in future any exceptions or unhandled scenarios occur, we should know that what would have happened, which would have led the bot for the failure. This is where the audit logs come in picture, that what each each logs each and every step performed, or maybe the exception logs, or maybe any business log which a business explicitly would have asked you, which we call it even the MIS report, which talks about it. If say 10 of your say there is a business process which has 10 requests to process each day. Your first request has been processed successful, second failed, third passed, fourth passed. So what has happened? The business SME wants report for each and every of the request. So in that scenario, we prepare a different MIS report, a report which has to be referred by the business SME at end of the day, just to ensure that whatever request has not been processed, they could either rerun it or they could do it manually. So any such logging which is required explicitly or implicitly, you need to mention it here clearly so that these could be further incorporated in the bot action. Next, we have dependencies. This is again which we talked about the triggers of the bot or any such dependencies which is required by the bot, maybe the Excel template, index, or in our scenario, the report or email communication for the go ahead, any such dependencies for your bot to get triggered or run has to be mentioned here. Then we have a special requirement and consideration. So these are again, it is required in concerns of your security aspects or frequency or data conversion or anything such likewise. Say, for example, your report uh, you know, maybe has been downloaded in CSV format, but your operations needs to be done basis when you convert it into Excel format, or that report once downloaded, you need to convert it into Excel format and then send it back to the other team. So any such requirements or anything considerations needs to be done, like for password change, your passwords expires after 30 days, 90 days. So what needs to be done by bot? Do they need to explicitly send notification or for exception change or expiry or anything likewise, the frequency of your bot, that how frequent it has to run, say every 15 minutes or a specific day of the month, or it does not has to run on or it has to be performed over weekend, anything, any such requirements or consideration which you would like to explicitly call it out or business needs, you need to mention it here. And then we have appendix, which is generally whatever is not here or whatever you want to mention for a reference purpose, maybe some keys, some abbreviations or anything like this, you can mention it over here. Anything which is at the end you would like good to know information, but not must to have, can be jotted down here in appendix section. So this is how what is PDD and how does on high level it look like. The look and feel could actually differ or could be defined as per your organization requirement or the client requirement, but the crux is that the information remains utmost and usually common throughout any organization you work with, any client you work with. So the main important thing, other informations inside this PDD rather than the look and feel of it. So I hope the PDD concept and what and how of PDD would have been clear by now. So let's look on to what next. In our next session, in our next video, we will talk about in detail of the ROI analysis, which is return of investment, what it is and how do we actually calculate the return on investment in RPA field. So till then, stay healthy, stay happy, keep learning and keep growing. Thank you, everyone.